Good morning. I'm Ryan Leopard, and this is Fort Wayne Up Close. Fort Wayne Up Close gives us the opportunity for us to shine the light on local leaders in our community. And today, my guest just recently retired from the game of baseball this past January, having played professionally for 11 seasons. He played Major League Ball with the Cincinnati Reds, Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Pittsburgh Pirates throughout his career, and played minor league ball right here in his hometown of Fort Wayne for the Tin Caps, after being drafted in the 5th round of the 2013 Major League Baseball draft by the San Diego Padres. During his high school days, he led Norwell High School to the 2013 Class 3A State Baseball Championship, and he is now back home in Fort Wayne full-time, running the Parkview Sports Medicine's youth baseball program. I want to welcome Josh Vanmeter to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. So, obviously, you're born and raised here in Fort Wayne, right? Mm-hmm. But you were gone a little bit before that. Did you always come back here in the off season? Have you always called Fort Wayne home, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a small town kid. You know, I'm from Wells County. Every off season, I always spent either in Wells County when I was living with my parents, and then as I got older, I eventually bought a house in Fort Wayne, and I've been coming back to Fort Wayne for every off season since since I was playing. And so, I'm kind of starting to feel some nice weather. I finally get the nice weather here in Fort Wayne, being home for it again, and it's it's been fun.
Nice. So you have a little bit different story because you're from here, so you came back here. But throughout my time here, I've met some former Tin Caps players that are Tin Caps / Wizards players that have kind of stayed in the Fort Wayne area. It's always funny because you always ask them, you could go anywhere. You're not from there. Why you stay in Fort Wayne? And they all seem to have the same story.
Yeah, it's
a woman.
Yeah.
They met somebody here. They may or may not still be with that person, but that's why they're here. But also, the economy, the cost of living, things like that.
I think it's a great place to raise a family. And obviously, I'm a little biased because I'm from here and have always kind of been here. And so, I love it here. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to Fort Wayne. So I'm going to go back a little bit, just kind of get a little bit of your history, what it was like navigating, professional baseball, right? Mm-hmm. So you were drafted in 2013, right out of high school by the San Diego Padres, right?
Yep.
What was that like, knowing you were going to get the opportunity to live out your childhood dream and play the game, that you loved?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back a long way, and I'll try to, that's a long answer, but I think, I tell people all the time when I was in school, when I was in 2nd, 3rd grade, 1st grade, and the teacher would go around and ask, like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. For me, it was always like, I want to play Major League Baseball. Like, that was literally, and it was a quick answer, and there was, like, conviction behind it, right?
So have you always loved the game since you started playing it, or did you grow into that?
No, I think my dad really loved the game. Like, my dad, I would say my dad introduced me to the game, and I think, he would tell you that from the time I picked up, I see it in my son now. My son will pick up a bat at 20 months old and just go swing, and you just see it. He wants to do it, and I imagine that's how I was, and my dad never shied away from that because I think that, he loved it so much, and as I got older, you start to see you have a little bit of talent, and then you just kind of let it go. But to answer the question, like when it came to the draft, my parents always stressed on me, hey, it's about the opportunity. You may never get this opportunity again, and obviously in the 5th round, it's getting drafted pretty high, and for me, and what I wanted to do, it made sense for me to kind of skip the college route and just dive into trying to become a major leaguer.
Yeah. So did you know at that time that you would be drafted, or any inclination, or was your goal to go to college until that?
My goal was to be a Major League Baseball player. I think my mom, would have liked if I would have went to college, but she would say now that it all worked out the way it should. And I mean, you definitely know, like going into the draft, like I had gone to some events in the winter of my senior year, and then you play throughout your high school season, and the scouts are there, and you're getting there's a lot of conversation there. And so
because the draft is after your senior season, correct? Or is that
no? It's actually during. So it was like I don't know. We won in the regional final, and then 3 days later was the draft. So then I remember our semi-state game was after the draft, so I had already technically been drafted, and we were still playing. And so, I kind of knew that I was going to get drafted and that I probably wasn't going to go to school. And I probably knew that from probably the first week of the high school season. Like once that first week kicked off, and you just kind of see who's all there and just the process of it. And it's kind of hard to explain, but you definitely have that gut feeling of, okay, I'm probably going to be able to do this.
Yeah, you've talked to enough people. You've had scouts come.
Yeah, there's enough people having conversation about to where you can kind of get a good sense of where you think you're going to go. And and we all knew, my family knew, like, hey, if it's at this spot, probably going to do it. And so that's what ended up happening.
If you're drafted high enough.
Yeah.
If you're drafted in the right
you
spot.
Kind of have all those scenarios, kind of drawn out even on paper, whether it's with your agent, your family, whatever it is. And normally probably a combination of all those. And fifth round, we were, very happy to skip the college route and go dive in and try to make my dream a reality.
Gotcha. So now baseball is different than a lot of the other major sports in the fact that they have a minor league system to help develop you for the majors. What was that journey like, navigating the minor league system and chasing your dreams till that point in time where you were able to get called up to the majors?
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people get drafted, right? But you have to still navigate that system in order to get to that peak level.
And I would say baseball is probably the hardest, right? Like it's the one sport where, most other sports, like you get drafted, you're at the highest level in the world. And it took me and that's the other thing about baseball. It's a grind. The minor leagues is a grind. I would say that guys are moving faster throughout the minor leagues now than they ever have. When I was drafted, it was pretty standard that you hit just about every level before you got to the big leagues.
There was no skipping a level or two.
There was no skipping. There was no, especially as a high school kid, right? Like, those early minor league years, I think organizations kind of view as like your college years, so you're going to spend typically a whole year at each one of those levels. And so obviously I had the privilege to play in Fort Wayne my first year out of high school. So, for those that don't know, the minor leagues is not glamorous. You're not making a lot of money. You're not, you're on long bus trips. It's a grind. It is a grind. And so I was lucky because I got to live at home. I got to save a little bit of money that I was making. And obviously to play in here in Fort Wayne. And then from there, I just kind of worked my way up the ladder. I was at every level. I repeated just about every level throughout my career. So, I feel like
repeat.
So like
multiple years in a row, or
I would play a full year, and then that next year I would be sent back. I played here all of 2014. I was sent back here in 2015 to start the year. So, I got injured, missed a lot of the year, but then I guess the only level I didn't was high A. But every other level, like when I got to double A, finished the year out, went back to double A the next year, played the full year. And then I went to triple A, and then same thing, started the next year in triple A, and then that was the year I ended up making the big leagues. But I had like probably 2,500 minor league at bats before I got to the big leagues. Played about 6 full years in the minor leagues. So 2013 to 2019 to when I made my debut, I was grinding in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Can you tell me what was the biggest difference you noticed from each level? Like what got better? What did you have to improve on to keep climbing that ladder?
Yeah, this is one thing I tell the kids all the time that come in, at those levels, the separator is consistency. Just whoever does it the most often, like that's who's going to move up the ladder. Like you can apply it to really any sport. Like Steph Curry is the greatest 3-point shooter because he's the most consistent. Like he makes the most threes. Of the ones he shoots, he makes the most. And it's the same thing in baseball. Like everybody's stuff we'll kind of talk about both sides of the game, but on the pitching side, like if you're in professional baseball, like your stuff, velocity, movement, all those type of things is probably really good. The thing that separates you as you go up the ladder is like being able to like control it, throw it wherever you want, whenever you want. From a hitting side, it's just like the separator is who consistently gets the barrel of the ball to the bat the most often. Like you look up in the big leagues, the best players are the guys that get the barrel to the ball the most often. It's really that simple. Now how you get there can be really complicating, but that's the thing about baseball. It's really a simple game. You break down baseball to like its purest form. It's a game of catch, really. The team that plays the best catch defensively typically wins. Team that catches it best, team that is the most accurate at throwing, plays the best defense. On the hitting side, like the teams that get the barrel to the ball the most consistently are typically your best teams and your best players. And so that's really the answer is just consistency. If you've made it in a professional baseball, someone believes that you can make it to the big leagues. Like no one would put their name on the line if they didn't think you could do it. Now, at the end of the day, it's up to the player going out and proving it. But the difference is really just consistency. Whoever does it the most often typically plays the longest.
Gotcha. Now, what positions did you mainly play?
Well, coming up as an amateur, I was a shortstop. I was a middle infielder, shortstop. But when I was young, I remember catching. I remember playing center field. I really played everywhere until, when I got into high school, it was like, I was playing shortstop pretty much all the time. And then As the draft came, teams wanted to see me play second base. Like, they wanted to see how I worked around the bag. And then in the minor leagues, I mean, I played second, short, and third from 2013 to 2019. And then I really started hitting, and so they wanted to see me play the outfield. And so I tried to learn how to play the outfield. And then as I got into the big leagues, you know, I was an infielder my whole life, and my first start in the big leagues was in left field. And so that's kind of like, that's just kind of how the game
was.
goes.
That a big transition for you?
Yeah,
Trying
it's
to learn
hard.
outfield
Yeah,
from
it's
doing
hard.
infield?
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially at the highest level. I mean, you're trying to do it in the highest level in the world. And so, you know, I think it's hard to do in high school probably. You know, imagine trying to do it in the big leagues. And so, yeah, there is, like, versatility is a super important trait to have, because I even tell kids all the time, like, if you high school senior, if you want to go play like big time D1 college baseball, like, the odds of you, if you're a shortstop in high school, the odds of you playing as a true freshman at shortstop at a big D1 school, like, I just don't think those odds are very high. Like, you got to be a special player to do that. And so I even remember guys that went through Norwell that were really good players that when they got to their freshman year of college, like, they weren't playing the position they played in high school. You know, you're going to hit your way into the lineup, and the team is going to find a position for you to play. And, you know, baseball is becoming more athletic by the day. And, you know, I think it's super important that, you know, you shouldn't be playing one position from the time you're 12 to the time you graduate.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation on the phone the other day about that when it comes to like the travel baseball and coaches being so focused on the same person playing the same positions rather than moving them around. Because even at that age, you talk about going from, you know, high school to college, but the same way going from, you know, youth baseball to high school, chances are likely you're not going to play the same position when you get there. You're going to grow. Your body's going to be different. You may be more athletic and faster as you get older. You're going to need to be an outfielder. You got multiple people that are going to be able to play infield, right? But,
no doubt. No, that's a great point, because, you know, the thinking on my side now, kind of what I'm doing now, is like, your first goal as a baseball player should be like, I want to make an impact on my varsity high school team, right? Like, that's kind of like the first step.
First goal.
That's like the first goal is like, make your high school team and then find a way to like make an impact, because, you know, that's really that like team environment, you know, and you're going to need that as you develop. And, you know, I think, because really in baseball, you don't really know what you got until you hit maturity. Like, until you really hit that maturation process. Like, I was a product of that. I was a little kid growing up, and I built the foundation for myself as a baseball player. And then when I kind of hit my growth spurt and I started lifting weights, and you hope that those things just kind of marry each other at one time, and then you really just kind of take off. And that's you know, we can talk more about that later. But that's the tricky thing about youth baseball is, you really don't know what you got until you start to grow.
The best players
you know?
I tell you what, youth are not necessarily going to be the best players. You're going to grow, and somebody else isn't.
There are very few times that the best 12-year-old is the best 18-year-old, best 17-year-old, best 16, and it's, you know, there's a lot that goes into that. But it's, you know, that's the one thing about baseball is, you know, Altuve's, you know, a perennial all-star, and Aaron Judge is the best player in baseball. You know, one of the best players in baseball. Two completely different sizes, two completely different athletes. Two completely different players.
Yep, gotcha. So going back to where we were at, what was that day like when you got the call, when you were told, hey, you're getting your opportunity to play in the pros, right?
Yeah.
How'd you find out?
Well, back then, so it's probably still this way, but the first two rounds in baseball are the only rounds that are televised. And I kind of knew that I wasn't going to go in the first two rounds. And so,
talking about draft?
The draft, yeah. Or are you talking about going to the big leagues?
Yeah. You're going through minor league. Man. You get told that you're getting your shot.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is a really good story. So this is going to be a long answer, but in 2018, when I got called up to AAA for the first time, I really struggled like the first half of my AAA stint. And then in the second half of the AAA season, I killed it. I think I hit like 320 over like almost 300.
What organization were you with
the
Reds?
This time? With the Reds. I was in Louisville and killed it. And, you know, going in the off season, getting a big league invite to spring training is like kind of a big deal. And I had never been before. And I really thought that I was going to get invited to big league camp. And at that time I was coaching middle school basketball at Norwell. And I'll never forget, I got a call from my agent like mid practice, and I run out of practice and I take this phone call, and he's like, hey, you're not going to get invited to big league camp, but they want you to come out early and kind of practice with everybody, but you're not in big league camp. And so, you know, I kind of lit a fire under my butt. Like I was pretty upset, to be honest with you. And I remember going out to spring training, and the Reds had hired a couple new hitting coaches that year, and man, I just bought into like kind of what they were selling, and I'll never forget. I worked with them every day. It didn't even matter. It didn't matter if it was on the field, in the cage, wherever they were. I was right there, and I was really only hitting with them. Like it was, I had a lot of conviction in like what they were teaching me, and it started to work. And I'm like, dang, I'm just gonna run with this. And so had a okay spring training. Then I get sent to Louisville, and I don't start the first day of the season, and I'm like, I'm pretty upset. I remember going into the manager's office, and I just, I was kind of speaking my mind, like, why am I not playing? And he's like, just be patient. And, that's hard to hear as an athlete. And I remember the next day I woke up, get to the field, I'm in the lineup, and I'm like, oh, so what was I really worrying about? And then from there, it's pretty well documented. I went off like in the month of April in AAA, like I was the best hitter in the minor leagues. I hit like 360 with 13 home runs in a month. And I got called. I remember we were playing in Indianapolis, and it was like the one night where I didn't get a hit. Like it was this tear I went on in AAA was just insane. And they called me in the office, and they said, you're going to the big leagues. And yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of emotions, I get goosebumps now. Like all the work literally it's a lifelong mission. I mean, it was literally like my lifelong mission was to play in the big leagues. And there's a lot that goes into that, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of highs, a lot of lows. And man, you're just overcome with emotion, and, call your parents, and call my wife now was my girlfriend at the time. And, it's just, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just one of those experiences that like, I mean, it's just, it's amazing. I mean, I literally, like, I'm still speechless. Like, I got goosebumps. Like, it's like not hard to talk about, but like, it's just, you can't put it into words.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, not only for me, but for my family, like my dad, like it was super
Everybody
emotional.
wins. When
Everybody
you win.
wins. Yeah, everybody wins. It's super emotional. Like, because I tell people all the time, like, people want to interview me. Like, people should ask to interview my parents too, because like they set the parameters for me, the structure for me to be able to do what I did. And ultimately, did I have to do the work? Yeah, but they had a huge hand in it as well.
That question really came. I saw a clip recently of a minor league player just getting called up, and they show him getting pulled out of the game. The coach coming over and saying something to him. I can't remember the exact verbiage on there, but he didn't really understand at first what he was saying. Then he really realized, you could see like the emotion just standing on his face, like his dream had just come true.
Everybody thinks
once you get there, it's not over, but that I'm getting my shot.
Yeah,
right?
And it's like you don't feel like it's real, because you're just kind of numb to everything. When you play minor league baseball, like you get numb to the outcomes, you get numb to like the business aspect of it. Because when you're in the minor leagues, you're seeing guys go up that, to be honest, you don't always feel like should be going up. That's just the game. Like there's a lot of GMing by players, in minor league baseball, and you believe it, and it's like, man, I get to do it. But you're right. Like that's only the first step. And
is minor league baseball about winning, right? The team concept of it,
No,
or is it about players?
It's about player development.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like there are teams that try to create cultures of winning. Like yes, you want to, you're seeing
everybody wants to win.
You're seeing it with the Tigers right now. Like I think the Tigers minor league system is like one of the best win-loss systems in baseball, and their big league team is winning. Like the Dodgers do that. Like the Yankees historically do that. And like, so you do want to win in the minor leagues,
but they're putting in a culture of winning.
But how you win is like by developing the best players. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
That's always wondered, because they're making decisions to get players in games and put in situations and see how they develop and stuff. Is it really more about the winning or the player development?
I would say it's a mix. I would say truly it's a mix, but I would say like that ratio is probably like 70-30. Like, it's mainly about player development, and then hopefully it's just like any team, right? Like you want to have 6 to 7 players that like are your core, right? And then if you can sprinkle in, on a professional team, let's say position players, let's say you have 14 position players, I would, as an organization standpoint, it's like, hey, at each level, we got 6 to 7 guys, 5 to 6 guys that like, these guys could really be like really good big leaguers. And then you hope to surround those guys with, I would like to call guys like me, like guys that could be good bench players, good role players. And I think for role players, it's like once you understand your role and you just stay in your role, just try to be who you are. And you can have good careers out of that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't always have to be the number one player on your roster in order to have a good career. And so I learned that. I like to tell everybody I was the best player on a team. I was the worst player on a team. Like, I've been on both sides of it. But yeah, short answer, professional baseball is about player development, no doubt.
Now you get to the pros.
Then it's all about winning.
Yeah,
then it's all about winning. Yeah.
Did you see success immediately when you get up there? Did you have struggles when you got up there, or what was that?
Oh, I struggled for sure. I'll never forget. I hit a bunch of home runs in AAA that year, and I get called up, and people expect you to just hit home runs, and I didn't hit a home run for like 50 at bats. Like, I struggled. I was on the up and down train from Louisville, driving to Cincinnati, getting sent down the next day, all that type of stuff. And I struggled at first, and then I just kept working. I just kept doing my thing, and ultimately it came.
So understand, like, baseball is a game of failure,
Oh,
right?
the
You're going to
ultimate.
fail more
Yeah,
off
the
of
ultimate,
that.
yeah.
How do you deal with that mentally, right? You just
Yeah.
you had such success at one level, then you go up
Yeah.
to the next level and you start struggling. How do you deal with that mentally?
Yeah, I mean, number one, you got to believe in yourself. Like, that's like number one. It's what I tell kids all the time. Like, you have to believe in yourself. And the only way you believe in yourself is by what you're doing outside of the lines, outside of the game. How much in your preparation, that's where you learn to take belief in yourself. And I knew that I was always working hard. Like, I knew that I was putting in the work, and I knew that, you get into the professional, it's a little different because, like, I know I belong, I guess at the big leagues, when you get to the big leagues, there is a period where, like, it's like, man, do I belong here? Right? Like, it's like, do I belong to be here? And I always thought I belonged because I knew that I was working. And I knew that in the past I had success. And it's like, if I can have success there, I know I can have success here. It's just a matter of time. Like, I just, in baseball, it's, when you're hitting, there are 8 guys against you. It's 8 versus 1. It's 9. It's 9 versus 1. And in any other sport, if it was 9 versus 1, like, your odds would not be very good, And so failure is, like, in baseball, you just know that it's going to have to happen. I guess, how do you deal with it? Like, number one is, like, believing in yourself, believing that you're over. I had a saying when I played, it was like, the tide's always going to turn, like, you may be going this way, but, like, baseball is a game of doing this. Like, it's peaks and valleys. It's not going to be just a straight line to success. Like, first off, like, knowing that you're going to fail is, like, step one to kind of, like, managing failure. Number 2 would be, like, having a really good routine. Like, as a hitter, I just would go to work and do the same thing, try to do the same things every day and that's how you're just getting that work in every day. It's kind of like we were talking off air about kind of like a workout routine. Like, when I got to the field, my routine was just so embedded in me that, like, I didn't even think about it, right? Like, you get your bat, you go to the cage, then from there you go to the field, from there on and so forth. And so the work was never a doubt, right? Like, so that's really, if I had to, like, break it down to, like, the simplest things, is like, number one, like, if you've had success, you're going to have success again. It's just a matter of time, and if you haven't had success, if you're putting in the work, it's going to come. Like, it's going to come. Like, but the second part of that is, like, you have to treat your practice like a game, because it's really hard to replicate the game in baseball. So like, when you're hitting in the cage, when you're doing all these things, like, number one, try to make it hard on yourself. And then number 2, when you do succeed, like, you got to, like, put that in your piggy bank, right? Like, okay, that's a good one. I'm going to stash that one. That's like, that goes into, like, if I had a meter of, like, belief, it's like every time I put one of those tokens in there, like, that meter shoots up a percent. And it's
real quick for any kids listening out there. When you talk about your routine in the batting cage, how often were you hitting off tees?
When I was young,
No. As a
in the big
professional,
leagues,
yeah. Did you do a lot of tee work?
I didn't do a lot of tee
No?
work.
Okay, that wasn't the message I was going for then.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
See a lot of pros, they start off the routine, then,
Yeah,
a lot of
but
kids
I
don't
will
do
say, that's a great question though, because I think there's a big misconception that 10 to 17-year-olds should be doing what big leaguers are doing, and that's
not the case.
Not the case. I mean, there's a reason they're in the big leagues, and there's a reason that you're a high school player. Like, you're a youth player. When I was 10, 11, 12, to the time I was graduating, I mean, I hit off the tee a lot until I probably got to AA. Kids need to be hitting off the tee. I mean, the tee is meant for mechanics, right? The reason you hit off a tee is to try to perfect your mechanics, because you take all the timing out of question. The ball's just sitting there on the tee. So you take out the timing mechanism of it, and so it's just mechanics, and kids need to work on their mechanics. So kids should be hitting off the tee a lot. I like to tell kids all the time, like, if you can't, if you can't hit 10 line drives off the back of the cage, backspin line drives to the back of the cage off the tee,
how are you going to do it against the pitcher?
Well, we need to perfect that before we move on to the next thing, right? Like if you can't consistently do that, it's like there's something wrong with your mechanics, right? Like, so we need to figure out your mechanics first. And so, because the reason that hitting is so hard is the timing aspect of it, right? And so take all that out, strip it down to the tee. Kids need to be hitting off the tee a lot. I mean, kids in general need to be hitting a lot. And it's like the tee needs to be a big part of that, because I would argue if you can't consistently hit line drives to the back of the cage off the tee, how do you expect to do it off a pitcher?
Yep. So that's a little bit about you. We'll get back to that now, but I also want to give you the opportunity. You and I met recently a few months ago at the World Baseball Academy's leadership luncheon, which is something that they hold for the youth in our area, high school youth, juniors, seniors, I believe, not recognizing them for their play, but recognizing them for their leadership within their school and their teams on there too. But you had a message there. You spoke about leadership and you know what you learned along your journey. Tell us a little bit about what that message is.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a big reason of why I'm kind of doing what I'm doing now. But you know, there's gonna be a time, you know, really in sports, you play sports for more than just winning and losing. You know, you play for more than just the sport. Like, I was a high school kid that went straight into professional baseball, and I felt like I was really prepared for it. And the reason I was prepared for it is because of all the lessons that the game of baseball teaches you outside of the game, just for life. And so I think it's always just a super important message for kids to just be aware of that, for kids to hear that, because I think in today's world, everything is about winning a trophy or winning games on the weekend. And we want to talk about a lot about development. Like, we're humans at the end of the day, and there's a lot of human development that can be taught through the game of baseball. And so whether that's being a good teammate, being a leader, learning what a leader is, whether that's, you know, I would argue being a leader is like learning how to cheer on your teammates when you're sucking, you know, like I've been that guy. It's really hard to cheer on your teammates when I'm 0 for 22, you know, but like, that's a good lesson for you to learn. And like, I would argue that's the best way to learn it is through the game of baseball, because that shows your character. It shows your integrity. And like, those are going to be things that you're going to need as you go through your life, as you go through, I like to call, like, when you graduate high school, that next, you know, 6 to 10 years of your life, there's going to be some grind moments in there. And like, those are the things that are going to take you through that, like your character, how you deal with adversity, how you deal with failure. Like, how do you react when you get knocked down? How
you accept coaching?
Right? Yeah, are you
working
coachable?
world? Somebody's going to be coaching you all the time.
Because I would argue, like, especially on the baseball side, like, if you want to go play baseball at the next level, like, you're going to get coached hard, really, really hard. And
feelings won't be a part of that, right?
No. There's no emotions. Like, you know, it's when you learn this at the professional level, like, you got to take the emotions that people don't, you know, your feelings don't matter. You know, I mean, that may not be a popular opinion, and I'm not saying that's how it should be for 12-year-olds or whatever it is, but you know, the game doesn't care about your feelings. You know, the game doesn't care that you're 0 for 10 and feeling sorry for yourself. Like, the guy on the mound's still trying to get you out, you know, like his life is on the line. His job is on the line. And so,
and you got somebody on the bench trying to get in the starting lineup,
exactly.
right?
And that parallel can be taken all the way down to 10U, 11U, 12U, right? It's like, it's a competition at the end of the day. And like, you feeling sorry for yourself only makes things worse, or because the game will never feel sorry for you. The game will never make it easy on you. You know, I always like to tell people in baseball, like, you got to earn it. You know, it's sports, really. I think that's what sports teaches at the end of the day, is like, you're going to have to earn it. You know, you got to earn your opportunity. And then if you take advantage of the opportunity, that's when you can really take off. And so getting back to the message, like, I think we need more young leaders. Like, it's never a bad thing to have more young leaders within a community, within their programs. And so just trying to really drive home that message of, like, you know, I was a leader by example for a long, long time because I was just the best player. And then I learned the other traits of leadership later in my career, of how to be a really good teammate even when things aren't going your way, how to have an impact on the game when you're not necessarily playing.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's one of the things that stuck with me when you said that was, I think the way you put it was, I've been the best player on teams,
Yeah.
and I've been the worst player on teams.
Yeah.
But you had to find a way to make yourself valuable to
Correct.
the team in order to stick around the game,
This
right?
is a great story. This is one of the best stories ever. I was in Pittsburgh in 2022. I got off to a really good start, broke my finger, missed like 6 weeks. And part of the business side of it is you get to a certain point in the season, and if you're not playing well, like young prospects are going to get a lot of opportunity. And so I was just not in that category at that point in my career. And so I went a stretch where I maybe started, less than 10 games in 10 weeks. And so I had to find a way, like, I wanted to stay in the big leagues. Like, you're getting paid well, you're living a great life. And this kind of sums it all up. They going around the locker room of like, hey, who can be our emergency third catcher? And I'm like, I'll do it. I don't care. Like, I'll do whatever. Like, just get me in the game or whatever it is. And so you never think that day is going to come. And I think we're playing a double header in Cincinnati in 2021. And our backup catcher gets thrown out in like the 5th inning. And then our starting catcher hits a double in the 7th and tears his hamstring off the bone, sliding into second.
Oof.
In like a, 2-2 game maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I see him slide into second, and he comes up hobbling. And so we don't have our backup catcher. Now our starting catcher's hurt. So who do you think's got to go into the game and catch? Me. And I sit there and like, I wasn't wearing a cup. And so I remember sprinting into the clubhouse, and I took the backup catcher. I'm like, hey man, I need your jock and your cup because I don't even have one. And so
you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah. So do what I gotta do, get the cup on, sprint down to the dugout, and I get like a catching lesson in about 2.5 minutes. And they asked me, when was the last time you caught? And I'm like, it's probably been since I was 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 minutes later, I'm catching in the 8th inning of a Major League Baseball game. And so I was just willing to do whatever.
Anything.
I was willing to do anything to try to earn another day. I mean, to be quite honest, like, and I can't tell you how many people, like how many players, coaches came up to me and just from our team and was like, hey man, thanks for stepping up and do that. And to me, it was like, it's just no big deal. Like, it's just kind of how I was raised. And I was like, at that point, I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to create as many memories as I can, good or bad. You know what I mean? And so it's just things like that, like being willing to step up when things aren't going your way and do things that the team needs. I think that I never shied away from going out there and throwing in a blowout. Like, teams always need those guys. I tried to make it fun for myself, and you buy the bullpen, you buy a guy an inning. And so just lessons like that, like trying to pick up tips on the pitcher when I'm not playing, trying to give our guys an advantage, going and watching video and trying to gain an advantage. And those are all things.
You find a lot of the younger guys accepting of that leadership.
Yeah, 100%, and then you just try to be a good teammate. And, the young guys, everybody deals with the failure aspect of the game, and just trying to lead those guys in the right direction of just, it's a part of the game, man. Like, you're a good player, just reminding guys how hard the game is. I think that in baseball, as a coach, it can come off of like, oh, the game's easy. And it's like reminding kids of, just reminding them, how hard the game is, reminding young players that in AAA, in the big leagues, like, hey, it's a really hard game. Just keep going. You're here for a reason. Like, somebody selected you on this team for a reason.
Did you find those same type of leaders helping you when you were younger coming up as well?
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you always try to pay it forward, right? And so, I would, there's guys that helped me along that when I was a young player, and you just try to give back, and you never want to. There's a lot of karma in baseball. The baseball gods, I like to say, are always watching. They're always taking note of everything you're doing, and if you're trying to do the right things within the game, it'll be paid back to you at some point. And I really kind of believe in that, and a lot of that goes back to just being a good teammate. And I like to tell people, being a good teammate is really easy when things are going well for you. Being a good teammate is really hard when things aren't going your way. And you find out a lot about people kind of in the game. You find out kind of what they're all about. And I always like to tell people, you want to be a guy that's easy to root for. You don't want to look across the field and be like, man, that guy looks like he's hard to root for. You know what I mean? You want to be that guy that's easy to root for. And I think it's like the ultimate compliment, in my opinion, in baseball. Is like, man, I'm rooting for that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I like watching him play. runs hard to first every time. He hits a fly ball, he's digging out of the box, and just stuff like that baseball people see. That,
they notice that not the average person notices, right?
Correct,
Did he run out that ground ball, that weak ground ball to second base? Did he run it out?
Exactly,
right?
For sure.
So, obviously, you played 11 years in the professional system there, but as all professional athletes, that day comes where you have to make a decision. And what was that day like for you, and how did you come to that decision?
Man, honestly, it was like a really easy decision.
Was it?
For me.
Okay.
Yeah, it really was, to be honest, man. Like the last couple of years, to make it as simple as possible, like when opportunity starts to dry up, it's just like, man, I'm still working really hard. Like I'm still doing everything I need to do. But at the end of the day, professional sports is a business, and for me, the last couple of years of my career, I just wasn't getting a whole lot of opportunity. And when I was getting opportunity, I wasn't taking advantage of it. And then on the back of that, starting a young family and, priorities start to change.
Switch. Yeah.
Priorities start to change. And, I remember telling my wife, it's like, the sacrifices are outweighing the ceiling of me really getting back to the, I was very realistic with myself. The game is always honest with you. And so when I wasn't getting the opportunity, it's like, man, you see other people like, man, that guy's raking. He's kind of my age. We're kind of the same sort of player, and he's not getting back to the big leagues. And so for me,
you start to see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, you start to see it, and I wasn't going to fight it. After we had our son, you start to look at things a little differently. And finally sat down one day and really had reflected, and it's like, man, I had a pretty good run at this, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be embarrassed of. And like I said, it was a pretty easy decision for me. And it always sucks, I'd be lying if there wasn't a lot of I remember calling my agent and crying. It's just, especially for me being a high school kid, like baseball has been my entire life, to be quite honest. Playing baseball has been from the time I was probably 6 or 7. Like I've been playing every weekend, every holiday for as long as I can remember, and like having Memorial Day off this past, whenever that was, like that's the first Memorial Day I haven't been at the baseball field, and it's just start to look at things like that. And I'm super, it's always bittersweet, right? Like I remember it being very bittersweet. Like, man, I still think I can do it, but is it realistic for me? And is it realistic for me for everything that I'm sacrificing? Yeah. And for me, that's what made the decision really easy.
I may be wrong here, but you had realized that getting back to the majors probably wasn't going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, if that was your ultimate goal and that goal is not there anymore, then
what am I really
doing?
What am I really doing? Like I would say, like I would debate anybody. Like if you're not an established big leaguer this would be my age 30 season. Like it's going to be really hard to find a minor league job. It's just going to be hard to find a minor league job because the game is getting younger and those young guys are being pushed to AAA. And it's just, there's only so many of those spots, right? There's only so many 30-year-old AAA guys playing every day. And like, in order to get back to the big leagues, like you got to be playing every day in the minor leagues. And I just haven't really had that opportunity. And so, you weigh out the pros and the cons. I did, my dad taught me this from a very young age, like weigh out the pros and the cons of a decision. And like, whichever one kind of outweighs the other, like there's your answer. Right. And so for me, the cons of playing greatly outweighed the pros at that point. So,
and from what you had mentioned to me off air, you had something else lined up, right? You had something else back home waiting for you. So you're back home full time now in Fort Wayne, and you're heading up the Parkview Sports Medicine baseball youth program, right?
Yep.
What's your vision for that?
Yeah, man, my vision is like it's a one-stop shop for baseball, and that's strength and conditioning, mental performance, facilities, instruction.
And taking a step back here, this is new for Parkview Sports Medicine. They're in some different areas of sports, but this is the first baseball program, right?
Yeah, and so I'll get into that. Like they're heavily in the basketball side, volleyball, and so for me, be quite honest, when I made the decision to quit playing, like I was just gonna probably give instruction on the side, like whether it be kind of build my own space, whatever it may be. I was fully planning on doing just lesson work, instruction work in the meantime. And so I had this opportunity to partner with Parkview, and it was really a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer decision for me and my family. And so I always, little background, like I had people towards the end of my career, like, hey man, like, would you want to coach? Would you want to coach at the professional level? And I was pretty dead set on like that I did not really want to coach at the professional level.
Did you ever picture yourself being a coach?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah? Okay.
For sure. Yeah. Especially as I got older, and I just felt like I know the game. Like I think one of the things that made me a really good player is that like I knew how to play the game. Like my baseball IQ was always really, really high. And I developed that because I had to work really, really hard. Like I was not one of those guys that was just uber talented, right? Like I really had to work my butt off. And so I had to learn the game. I watched the game a lot growing up. Like even throughout my professional career, like I would watch MLB Network till 1, 2 in the morning every night and then get up and go play the next day. And so I was a student of the game. And so most students of the game end up being coaches. And so I always knew that like, and I think I was afforded the opportunity, like making it to the big leagues. Like I tell people I don't have a college degree, but I'd like to think I got a PhD in baseball. Right. And so, I always saw myself being a coach, and I've always like wanted to lead a program, more than coaching. Like I've always like wanted to like, when I think of like great managers, coaches, it's like, man, they're leaders of men, right? Like they know how to lead people to the finish line. And so I really like found a passion in that, like kind of leading a group to the finish line. Like no matter if you have the best players, you can always like, you can create an environment, a culture to where you can have a lot of success. And so, kind of with this opportunity with Parkview, we started with just kind of the baseball academy, the training side of it, where it's just either one-on-one work with me or group instruction. Like, you and 3 of your teammates can come in and we can hit for an hour and do a bunch of cool stuff. But yeah, now we're getting kind of into the travel baseball youth team aspect of that. I think it's there's a lot that goes into that. I'm super fortunate that I like to think I've got people that have been able to kind of do it and be successful with the Parkview group that have kind of know the model of kind of the youth sports travel club team space. And so I'm learning on the fly as much as anybody else. Like this has been a big learning curve for me. Youth baseball is vastly different today than it was
when you played,
when I was a kid. And so for me, I think the vision is just, through my experience and kind of the resources that Parkview can provide on their end, we feel like it's going to be the best place if you want to become a better baseball player and your goal is to play baseball at the next level, or your goal is to, when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, to make your high school team. Like we want to be that place for you too. And so, my vision is that like, our high school teams like are going to, we want to have really good high school teams. Like that's going to be the thing that kind of sets you apart, is having like really quality high school teams. The goal is hopefully we can have 2 or 3 of those teams, right? Is like, you kind of create a hierarchy to the system. That's what everybody talks about, the Indiana Bulls and kind of their program, kind of the stranglehold that their program kind of has on the state. And so we just want to do that in Fort Wayne. One of the things that got this whole conversation started is like, why are the best players from Fort Wayne leaving and going and playing for the Bulls or Evo Shield, whatever that may be. And so I think with my experience and kind of like what we can provide, like, I don't think there's not going to be an excuse to go do that. And so that's really where the conversation started. And then just kind of building off that.
Yeah. To your point about the players leaving, I also thought that too. We got a nice facility with the WBA and those fields out there and the tournaments they hold. And we're, hopefully getting a couple more of those facilities here to hold those. Kind of like, why are we traveling 3-4 hours to other places to play in these travel tournaments when there's multiple travel organizations here and we have those fields?
For
right?
sure. Yeah. And
so
that's a large
more
conversation.
We can keep here.
That's a large conversation. When I would love to have that because I would like to learn more, but I think, I try to do a lot of recon, and it's like, I just think we start by like the best players. And, when you get into high school, if you envision yourself playing at the next level, if you envision yourself as one of the better players, like, I know when I was that age, I played with the best players from Northeast Indiana. Like that was our travel team. And I think we need a group that can just lead that, right? Like if we can get one group to where I remember having a conversation with a high school kid at Homestead, and I was like, hey, we took every one of your kids in your class and put them on a 17-year travel team, like how good would you be?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, he wrote me out the lineup, and it was a college commit at every position. He's like, I think we'd be pretty good. And I'm like, why is no one doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? If you can put it on paper and be like, my argument would be like, why is that not happening? And he gave me some feedback, and I think we're going to be able to kind of solve those problems. And I just envision that we are kind of the home. And, I always say this humbly because I really do hate talking about myself and my accomplishments. But like, the experiences, the credentials, the whatever you want to call it, like, there's no other former big leaguer running a program. Yeah, there's no other former Major League Baseball player running a program. And so I think that's, from the start, that makes us different already. And so I think that goes into that. I always tell people to set your program apart, you got to have really good coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have really good coaching. And I think that I am going to be actively involved in coaching our coaches, right? Like that's one part of leading is like, it's going to be a structure. It's going to be an organization. It's really like building this out like a professional organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's a GM, right? And then everybody else kind of falls underneath, and the GM is leading that. And I would be on all ends of that, right? Like I would be in the coaching, the player development, like I will have a hand in all of that. And I just believe that with the people, we've got some people involved that are going to get involved that I think will set us apart as well. And I just think, we're obviously in the early stages, and I've got a big dream, a big vision, and it's just like baseball. It's not going to be pretty all the time. There's going to be ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some failure along the way, but I just really think that bringing a little bit more of that common sense back to the youth travel
Mm-hmm.
baseball. I like to tell people all the time, travel baseball was not a thing when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start really playing travel baseball until I was 12. I get that the landscape has kind of changed, but just kind of bringing some common sense back to the development part of it, right? Like, I would argue that, when I was 12, I played travel baseball because I was fortunate enough to be one of the better players.
Mm-hmm.
I tell everybody when I was
I think
12,
you said you were kind of recruited into it, right?
yeah, our 12-year-old team was recruited. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my dad started our team, and my dad did a lot of the recruiting. And we had players from Huntington, Northfield, Fort Wayne. I mean, we were from Northeast Indiana, and I think we need to get back to that culture a little bit, like of just, right, the difference between recreational and super, super competitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would argue that the reason you play when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is like you're trying to find your passion for the game. Like you're really trying to figure out like if you like it or not. And, I tell kids all the time, that can't be determined on how successful you are either. You can't be basing that passion off of how many hits you're getting in the weekend, because the matter of the fact is in baseball, we talk about 3 out of 10, like you don't hit 300 by going 3 for every 10.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go 0 for 10 and then 6 for 10 or whatever it may be. And so, just hopefully my goal is to create an environment for those kids where we take some of that super competitiveness out of it and we get them to really find that passion for the game. Because
You think you do that through development?
yeah, I think you can. I think you can do that through practicing a lot.
I agree, because I firmly believe, coaching kids, kids quit too soon. A lot of time because
no doubt.
they just don't see success with being good. Not from winning games, but
Correct.
learning how to throw the ball, learning how to hit regularly, making
Correct.
contact and stuff like that, which I think about it, like if I wasn't any good at a game, I probably wouldn't enjoy it either.
No
But if you
question.
stick with it and you get better at the fundamentals of
For
it and the
sure.
actual, all the little stuff at
It's
it,
just like-
winning will come with it.
It's
But
just
you
like
can see
it's
success.
like on the back. I would correlate this like straight to basketball. Like, you may not be the greatest athlete in the world, but if you teach yourself how to shoot
Mhm.
and you do it enough, you can become a pretty good shooter.
Mhm.
I had a decent high school basketball career, and the reason I was good is because I could really shoot. You know why I could really shoot?
Could you practice?
Because my warm up before hitting, every time we would go hit, is I would shoot. I would shoot for an hour. I would just work on shooting, and I would do it all the time. And I developed into a pretty good shooter. And it's like, it's to your point, right? Like, you may not be great when you're 8,
Mhm.
9, 10, 11, but if you are practicing the fundamentals a lot, and it's just like building a house. Like you can't go straight to the roofing. Can't go straight to the siding. Like, you got to build the foundation. And I would argue the foundation is baseball is, number one, catch the ball. Number two, learn to throw the ball to a target. Number three, on the hitting side, is like, learn to get the barrel to the ball. However that is, like off the tee. Learn to hit line drives, backspin line drives to the back of the cage every time. Do some kids need more instruction in that than others? Yes, but there are a lot of resources out there now where you could find. It may not be the cool thing to do. It may not be, you may not get to stand how you want to stand, but if you want to become a better player, we can put you in positions in order to accomplish that goal. But then at the end of the day, it's like, it's reps. There's no substitute for reps. There's no substitute for time. And I think into the youth travel aspect of it, like, I would argue, instead of going on the weekend and playing every weekend and playing 3 or 4 games with an hour, 45-minute time limit, I think I know that with our resources, we could rent a field for 4 hours. We could practice for 2 hours and then play simulated games for 2 hours with just our group. And we could get a lot of reps in, and I just think that there's so much more value in that at the younger ages than just practicing once a week and then going and playing. Because if you really break it down, right, if you play a baseball game, you get 4 at bats. You may, at the youth level, you may see 5 pitches to hit in a 11U game. So that's 5 reps. That's 5 reps you're getting. And then on the defensive side, you may get 2 reps all game. You may get 2 ground balls. You may get 2 flyouts a game as an individual player. You do that if you, let's say in a day, you get 20 reps throughout the game of baseball. Say you do that Saturday, Sunday, that's 40 reps. You can go hit for 2 hours and take 10 times as many reps doing that. And it's like, that's what the youth ages should really, really be about.
That's what I tell the kids that I coach all the time is like, my favorite thing about the game is practice, not the game.
Yeah.
Because you could go a whole game, and baseball can be a very boring game at times. If you're in the outfield and you don't get a ball the entire game, 100%. It's very boring. 100%. In practice, I'm getting balls over and over again. It's no different if I'm getting them in practice or I'm getting in the game, right? Like, I just enjoy the reps of doing it. If you can do that, you're going to get much better.
Constant action, right?
Yeah.
In practice, it's like basketball, up and down, up and down. In a game, it's like, man, I could go a half hour in between at bats. I could go 2.5 innings in between getting a ground ball. And I think the bigger part of this is like just the game. What you do in a game is a direct representation of what you do in practice. Like that's as simple as I can make it. I think I was a really good player, yes, because I was blessed with some talent, but 2, it's how I practiced. I practiced the right way, and I practiced a lot. And the game is a direct, Steph Curry never practiced shooting threes. He probably wouldn't be very good shooting threes in a game, right? Like if I never
getting ahead of half-court shots because he's shooting them in practice all the time.
If I never practiced hitting on my own or with my dad, I probably wouldn't have been a very good hitter in games, right? And it's just like there's no shortcut to success. And I think that's in such a fast-paced world we live in nowadays, and I think there's a lot of kids that, like, if they don't have success right away, it's really hard. It's really hard for them. And I get that because I know what failing feels like. But the other end of that is like, if you're working and you're doing the right things and you're I like to call it mastering the fundamentals. Like if you can master playing catch, if you can master throwing to a target, and you can master getting the barrel to the ball, chances are you could be a pretty good player. Not everyone, there are limitations to that, but like, if you can master those things and you practice those things a lot, like you can play on your high school team. Like I know that for a fact. Like if you can consistently put the ball in play and you can consistently throw to a target and you can consistently catch the ball, fielding the ball, catching a ball, whatever it is, you can play in high school. And like, that's,
just stay on. If you can make the school you goes to team or something.
Exactly.
That's a whole other conversation.
And that's a lot of that is outside of my purview.
Yeah, but if you want it, I believe the same thing. I mean, I can teach anybody that wants to catch the ball, throw the ball, and be able to hit the ball, to be able to play at a high school level if they had the desire to do so. Just whether they get a chance or not.
The other side of that too is like, but with that comes a lot of failure. And it's like, are you ready to deal with that failure for the success? And I think why youth players quit a lot, I see it all the time. They get frustrated in the cage. I'll make a kid do the same drill. he swings 10 times in a row and misses, like, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because when you get it the one time, you're going to be like, ooh,
It was worth it.
I can do it.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do it. And it's like, I could set up the hardest drill on a machine. Dude, I love doing this with high school kids because it's like, if I come in a training session and it's just a fluff fest the whole time where you're just dominating the drill and you're not being challenged, like, what are you really getting out of it? You know what I mean? And so I want to make it hard on you. And so there's nothing more I enjoy than watching someone struggle in the cage, because when they get it that one time, you see it on their face. They're like, ooh, I can do it. Right. And it's like, we all chasing that feeling. Right. And so that's the cool thing about baseball is once you prove it to yourself that you can do it once, then you know you can do it. Right. Then it's just about repeating it over and over and over and over. And a lot of kids just don't give themselves a chance to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And just in talking to you through this, I would say you can see your passion for the game, how you like to talk about and how that's going to transition into your coaching. I got running short on time here. I do have one more real question I want to get your opinion on here. And then I got a few fun questions for you, then we'll get out of here. But what would your advice be to the young kids growing up playing nowadays? And then also advice for those kids' parents, right? A lot of time, especially with the travel ball going younger and the parents pushing them in there and all this stuff. I know a piece of advice was given to me that I'm going to mention, but I want to hear from you first what your advice to those would be.
I could talk for a long time on this question. I'll try to make it short. My advice for the kids would just be, man, just spend a lot. If you want to be good, right, you got to spend a lot of time practicing. That could be in your basement. That could be your dad rolling you ground balls. That could be hitting off a tee into a net at your house. That could be playing wiffle ball in the backyard. That could, that branch expands many, many different ways. And I guess the last piece of advice is like, you just have to believe in yourself. Like you have to have some sort of self-belief to know that you're going to do it. And that would be my advice to kids is like, you're going to fail, but believe in yourself because you can. If you do it enough, you can accomplish it, and so that would be to the kids, to the parents. My number one piece of advice is you got to let your kids fail. You got to, I haven't, I'm sure that I will experience this in the future with our son. But man, failure is the ultimate teacher. Your kids are going to grow more from failure than they are from succeeding. And just letting them dive into failure, I think it would be my number one piece of advice. You're not going to save your kid from going 0 for 3. You're not going to save your kid from going 0 for 4. It's going to happen. If he plays baseball, he's going to have a game where he goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. My piece of advice is at the end of the day on that car ride home is like, it's part of the game. Go get him next time. There's no telling tomorrow you could wake up and go 4 for 4 and you're going to be thinking about this 0 for 3 thinking, why was I even sweating it? You know what I mean? And it's you put your arm around them, you encourage them, and but you can't shelter them from failure. And that would be my number one. That was something that my parents did. They pushed me. They never hid me from. They never sheltered me from failure. And I think that let me grow not only a lot as a baseball player, but just as a person as well.
And I have a 19-year-old, and now I got an 11-year-old, and 8-year-old, so different things, and there's no manual to how to do this parenting thing. So I learned through failure of being a parent, coach, with the kid, a 19-year-old. I wasn't his direct coach, but I didn't want to see him fail. So I would see him struggling. So I'd be over there talking to him from outside the dugout, stuff like that. And then after a while, I realized how much he hated that.
I'll just tell you this, when my son starts playing, it's like, when I go and watch games, like when I go and watch baseball games, I just sit and watch, right? Like, because there's nothing you're going to tell him in that split second that's really going to make a big, big impact, right? Within the game. Like, it's like I say, like the game is a direct representation of your practice, and I just think that part of that, right, is like, hey, I don't want you to fail so bad that I'm gonna help you. We don't want
to see you miss that next at bat. So let me help you now.
Exactly.
And it doesn't.
And I think from a kid's perspective, that is like, it might add that sense of like, that sense of tension, like, and in hitting and baseball, like tension is the enemy. Like you got to be relaxed. You got to breathe. You got to get your heart rate down. And it's a really cool perspective because it's, I'm going to go through these same things one day and I'm learning from you saying these things. And so, it would be you're on the right track, and it's just failure. It's being scared of fail. I think one thing going back to the kids is like, you can't be scared. You can't be scared of the opportunity. Like when that opportunity presents itself in front of you, you got to learn to just take a deep breath and believe in yourself, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Because in baseball, you never know when your opportunity is going to come. You never know. And when it comes, you got to take a deep breath and believe in yourself and let your ability take over. And
the piece of advice I was mentioning that was given to me is the car ride home there.
Yeah.
Coach that I played for in high school, and I highly respect. We had this conversation when I had my kid, and it's like, don't talk about the game on the way home.
Yeah.
Right. And I was talking about the good and the bad of it doing that. So, when they told me that piece, I would stop doing it. And it's funny because my wife just brought this up the other day. She just mentioned to my younger one about, well, somebody always talks about it. That ain't me.
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that a long time ago.
Yeah.
She does it. Like she'll bring it up and I'm like, stop, leave him alone. Just let him go. Let it go. Now's not the time. I was just in the moment like, it's fresh on their mind. If you don't talk about it now, they're not going to remember.
Sure.
And it didn't work out. It was never a positive conversation. So
I think
no point.
To the parents, I think two of the best things you can say to your child after a game is, I love the way you competed. You may not have had success, but man, I love the way you competed. And then number two would be like, I love how hard you played. Even though you hit a chopper to the shortstop, you busted your tail down to first base. You were the first one out of the dugout, the first one in the dugout. You went for every ball. You played as hard as you could, because in baseball, there's only two things you can really control, and that's your effort and your attitude. And that's, as a parent, those are the two things that you can control as an athlete. Those are, as a parent myself, those are the two things I'm really going to harp on my son is like, if you didn't control your effort or your attitude, you're going to hear about it, because those are the two things you can't control, whether you go 0-3, whether you go 0-4, but you can control how hard you play and how you play and your attitude within the game. And so that would be the car ride home. Like that would be my biggest piece. Like if there's something you really want to say, it would just commend them. Number one, if they didn't compete hard or they didn't have a good attitude, like I think that's something you can harp on them about, because those are two things that are in your control. You can't, in my opinion, harp on things that are outside of your control. And the unfortunate thing in baseball is there is a lot outside of your control.
Yep. So a couple fun questions here, and we'll get you out of here.
Right.
Obviously, when you make it to the pros, it's a lot about business.
Yep.
What would you say your most fun level of baseball? Was it when you were youth, high school, playing professionally?
High school.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Winning the state championship my senior year is never felt like I've been more of like a team. And I just really, really enjoyed that.
So you may have just answered one of my other questions here. We'll jump ahead. What was your biggest accomplishment in the game of baseball? Would you say that high school championship, or what would you?
Biggest accomplishment would be
the most meaningful accomplishment.
Man, probably still making it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
Just because of everything that goes into it, kind of just the life aspect of it. But I mean, a top three memory would be winning the state champion. And I've hit a walk-off home run in the big leagues. I've hit home runs in the big leagues. I've, played it.
That's not that picture, is it?
That might be a home right there. Actually,
I think it was. The way around the bases.
I think the Rockies
look like that.
But anyway, winning, and that's why I'm so passionate about kind of the high school thing is like, I was fortunate enough, our high school team won the state championship, and there were kids on that team that didn't play travel baseball, that didn't play baseball at the next level. And I think they would tell you that was probably a great experience for them. And I think that that's part of leadership, right? Is you can take people along with you on experiences that they may never get to experience, And I think that that's why the high school thing means a lot to me, is because that memory, that run, those years of, we had 12 players in our senior class that were on that team. And just the journey it took for us to ultimately accomplish that goal there was a lot that went into that, a lot of ups, a lot of downs that went into that, and we accomplished it. And it was awesme, dude. Awesome.
So you answered both questions, because I actually did have biggest accomplishment and most memorable moment. So you kind of tied both of them in there. So who was the best baseball player who's the best player, skill, talent wise, that you had the opportunity to play with?
Play with?
In your mind.
Oh man.
So I saw a Yankees hat on. Did you ever have a chance to play with Judge or not?
Yeah, I mean,
My son asked that. My 8-year-old asked that.
Yeah, in spring
question.
training. Yeah,
I don't know.
I wasn't in the big league like in the regular season, but in spring training, like, yeah, I was in the same lineup as him a couple times, and I got to see him up close, and it's really cool. I got that last year with Judge, Soto, Gleyber. I mean, getting to watch those guys just in the cage on a daily basis. Man, best baseball player. Man, a young Ronald Acuna. So I came up playing against Ronald Acuna.
I'm a huge Braves fan.
I came up playing against Ronald Acuna. Man, one of the most underrated is Austin Riley. Him and Ronald Acuna, I came up playing against those guys in the minor leagues. They were in Mississippi when I was in Pensacola, and they were in Gwinnett when I was in Louisville, AA, AAA. And man, a young Ronald Acuna was different. Before he got hurt, he was almost 66, or I guess Shohei was 50-50. He had 50. But he had 90 bags and like 40 homers the one year, and
he won the MVP that year, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he was, and I got to see him from 18 to the big leagues, but I mean, the best play. I mean, I could route, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman.
So were you in the Braves organization, or
no? Just we're playing against them. A lot.
Playing
like,
against
just
them. Gotcha.
Throughout the regular season, like. Dude, Austin Riley made a minor league career off Reds affiliates. I mean, it would be like he just dominated us. And it was just, it's cool. You see those guys. I mean, getting to play with Joey Votto, a Hall of Famer. He was close. We were very close in the locker room, so we talked a lot. And just guys like that throughout, just where you go. And got Ketel Marte with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think is one of the most underrated players in all of baseball.
So we'll accept that answer. There's not one best player. You played with a lot of talented players.
I mean, they're all really good. I mean, those elite guys they're just fun to watch as a baseball fan.
What was the last school in Fort Wayne area to win a state baseball championship?
Norwell.
You told me that.
2013.
Yep. And so it's hard to believe, but I looked it up.
Was I right?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I don't. I might be wrong on this one, but looking up, even in a championship game, there was one that a few years ago said East Side. So I'm not sure if that's the East Side here or if that's somewhere. If there's another East Side somewhere, but that's the only one that stood out to me that was even in a championship game. The reason why
I'm so passionate about this because kind of what I'm doing now because so much of your development as a youth baseball player, I'll call it amateur baseball player, is going to be outside of your high school. Like, that's just the way it works. You're going to spend more time developing kind of in a third party organization than you are necessarily with your high school team. And so that's not like, I'm not trying to say that I'm competing with high school coaches. Like I would love to like help high school coaches, right? Because I want those kids that like, there's no way we should have 12 years, whatever it's been with no state championships, especially on the run that we went from the prior 13 to 15 years. And so, to
your point, looking prior to yours,
every year there
was multiples.
And
Snyder, Carroll, Norwell, Blackhawk Christian.
There was a lot of them. And so feeling like if we can be a hand in that development aspect of it, man, that should transition right into their high school seasons and, getting to compete. I remember my senior year, kids on my summer team were at Carroll, were at other schools. So like during the year, like there was that pride factor of it too. Like I want to win I want to beat you. I know we're teammates in the summer, but hey, I want to kick your butt in the season. And so, I just think that if we can get back on that track, I think that we'll be in the right direction.
Get the high schools back on the right track.
Because really, if high school baseball is thriving, man, you get that. That excitement behind the game as well, too.
Gotcha. So I found a clip that I wanted to show you. I don't know when you've seen this or not, but if our production team wants to roll that real quick.
You've been to state finals before in basketball. At least how's this one feel to win this?
Feels a lot better than it did last year in basketball. The feeling is just overwhelming. It's unbelievable to do this with my senior teammates. My best friends. We're all going off to college. It's gonna be the last time I see some of these guys for a while, and just to be able to share this moment with them is just an unbelievable feeling.
Talk about the third and fifth innings there when you got on base early on. Just how confident were you that you would Jonah there knock you in?
We're the best hitting team in the state, I believe. We get our leadoff man on. We're gonna score a lot of the time. And our lineup up and down can hit the ball. I got confidence in every one of the guys in the lineup, and I knew they were not going to shut us out. I knew we would score more than one run. We scored 2, and it won us the game.
This is the third title for the school and this program. Just talk about how leaving this, maybe you can get 3 more pretty quickly.
Yeah, next year, maybe a rebuilding year for them, but I think they're going to do great. They got Jonah Patton, who's a stud, and they'll do just fine. Just the school, it speaks to the coaches. Coach McLean comes in, does a great job his first year, and we win a state championship. I think that shows what kind of coach he is, what kind of person he is. And just to motivate us every game of the year and to get to this point and win it, it speaks volumes.
What was work on the mound for you? I know you had 8 strikeouts today, and just you were down a little bit there, but you kept your team in it.
My fastball and my curveball really were my pitches today. They had one lefty in their lineup. I was able to throw my changeup to him. But, my curveball and just getting ahead of them and keeping them off balance was the key for me. I couldn't have done it without my defense, though. Without those 8 guys behind me, who knows what the game would have been, and I'm just thankful for every single one of them.
Have you pitched your last game, do you think?
Yep, I pitched my last game. I leave Monday for Arizona, and I'll be playing every day at shortstop, and can't wait for that to happen.
So, have you made your decision about whether you're going pro or college, or what's going on?
Yeah, I'm going to go play professionally. Like I said, I report to Arizona on Monday, and so we'll see from there.
So no time off for you to celebrate, I guess.
Nope, got to spend a little time with family this weekend, spend some time with my friends before I leave, and I'll be back in October. But, I'm just going to enjoy this moment, enjoy, the many moments to come over the next 2 days.
Is it rookie ball or what's it?
Yep, rookie ball, yeah.
This one feel, you've been to state finals.
That's pretty cool, dude.
Have you seen that?
Not
recently?
Not a long time. No. That's
How does it make you feel?
Yeah, a little emotional.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
That was the entire clip. I really wanted to cut at one part, and it's when you started laughing when it said, "Have you pitched your last game?" And I know why you started laughing, because that wasn't your last game, right?
Yeah, that's no.
I read somewhere that was not your last game.
No. It's
so tell me about that experience, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
How'd that go for you?
Man, I like to tell one of my claims to fame is I gave up one of Albert Pujols' 700 home runs. So there we go. So it's that brought back a lot. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing that. That was.
You're welcome. I found that the other day and thought that was really cool. And then, like I said, when I heard the pitching part there, because I'd already read about. To be truthful, I knew who you were. I knew you played for the Tin Caps. It's not like I followed your career to know all that about it. So when I'm doing the research on it, saw you got into pitch a game in there. So when I found that clip and saw, I was like, this is hilarious, because it was not your last pitching experience too. So, but Josh, really appreciate you coming on, talking with us here at Our Neutral Voices and Fort Wayne Up Close. I could talk baseball with you all day. It's a game I love.
We'll have to do this again.
Yeah. Congratulations on making it to the highest level that we all dream about growing up. It's a huge accomplishment. So, looking forward to what you're going to be doing with PSM and the baseball program as well.
Yep.
As I got a kid in there now too, so I'll be definitely watching that. You don't have a 9U program though. Sorry, is that strategic? Starting at 10?
That's strategic.
Okay, for your plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 is 10U is where you're starting that program at. Gotcha. So. Be watching it definitely closely, and hopefully look forward to maybe having some other conversations with you. Like I can talk baseball all day. But thank you for audience out there watching us today, watching Fort Wayne Up Close. Hopefully you enjoyed this with Josh. We'll see you next time. Till then, we're Our Neutral Voices. Peace.